Something big is happening, kind of quietly, in how we think about right and wrong in our digital world. The old rulebook, the one written when computers were just clunky boxes on our desks, it's not just outdated, it's totally breaking down. We need a new moral compass, one that's actually built for the gigantic, interconnected world we live in now. So, let me ask you something that might sound a little weird at first. Can a piece of data actually be a victim? I mean, can you morally harm a database? Believe it or not, how we answer that question is forcing us to toss out the old ethical rules and build something entirely new for our digital age. Okay, so to understand where we're headed, we've got to first look at the map we've been using for decades: computer ethics. It's been our guide for a really long time, but let's be honest, the world it was drawing for, it doesn't exist anymore. Computer ethics was basically our first aid kit for the digital world. It gave us a really practical set of tools for the early days, for tackling stuff like hacking, software piracy, and the first big questions about data privacy. You can think of it as a professional code of conduct for the tech crowd. But here's the problem. Technology just exploded, right? It moved so fast that these specific practical rules just couldn't keep up. They were designed for individual machines, not a planet wrapped in a single network. And this has created what experts call a policy vacuum, basically a giant black hole where our ethics should be. Look, it really all boils down to an issue of scope. We've been trying to solve these massive global problems with a tiny, specialized toolkit. That's microethics. What we desperately need now is a macroethics, a foundational, universal moral compass that can actually guide us through the huge, complicated questions our technology creates every single day. So, if the old map is basically useless now, what does the new one even look like? Well, to build a new framework, we first have to really understand the new world we're all living in. A philosopher named Luciano Floridi gave this new environment a perfect name: the infosphere. Now, it's not a physical place you can visit, but it's absolutely where we live more and more of our lives. It's this whole ecosystem made of data, the code that crunches it, and every single digital interaction we have. And here is the key, the one analogy that unlocks this whole idea. Information ethics is to the infosphere what environmental ethics is to the natural world. It's a call to action, really. It's saying we need to become responsible citizens and caretakers of this new digital ecosystem that we've all built. Now, this is where things get really interesting, because this new perspective forces us to completely change our answer to one of the biggest questions in all of philosophy. You see, for pretty much all of human history, our ethics have been incredibly biased. They've either been anthropocentric, meaning it's all about us humans, or biocentric, which is a little better, extending concern to all living things. But everything else, it's just a resource, a thing for us to use. Information ethics just blows past all that and asks a much more fundamental question. What is the absolute rock-bottom minimum requirement for something to deserve even a little bit of moral respect? Is it being human? Is it being alive? Or is it something way, way more basic than that? And the answer this new framework gives is so simple, it's kind of shocking. The minimum requirement is just being, existence itself. The very fact that something exists as a distinct pattern of information gives it a tiny, minimal moral status. This is huge. It means an information entity isn't just a person. It could be an AI, a company database, or even a complex weather system. They all have a basic claim to exist and to flourish. So you can see this is a massive paradigm shift. We're moving away from a worldview centered on humans or even just life to one that's ontocentric, which is just a fancy way of saying it's centered on being itself. The new focus of morality is existence, which, in this view, is ultimately information. Okay, so if everything has some kind of moral claim, even a tiny one, how in the world are we supposed to act? What does it even mean to be good in the infosphere? Well, information ethics gives us 4 guiding principles, almost like the laws of physics for our digital world. All 4 of these laws are aimed at fighting one common enemy: entropy. And in this context, entropy just means the destruction, corruption, or degradation of information. So, rule 1 is don't cause it. Don't break things. Rule 2, try to prevent it from happening. Rule 3, if you see it, you should actively try to remove it. Fix the broken stuff. And finally, the highest good, Rule 4, is to actually promote the flourishing of information and the infosphere, to make it richer and healthier. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds incredibly abstract and philosophical, right? But trust me, this has profound, super practical consequences for how we design and regulate the technology that runs our lives. Just think about it. Privacy is no longer just about keeping secrets safe. It's about protecting the very fabric of your informational self. And when we talk about AI ethics, the focus shifts from just human control to this more complex idea of shared responsibility between us and the machines. Vandalizing a database isn't just a technical problem anymore, it's a direct ethical harm. And maybe most importantly, this forces us to consider that moral agents, the things that can do right and wrong, might not just be human anymore. The philosopher who developed all this, Lashana Flaherty, puts it perfectly. He says, we are fundamentally made of our information. Our personal data isn't just a shadow of who we are, it's a core part of our being, what he calls our mehood. So when you harm that information, you are literally harming us. And this changes everything about the role we play. We have to stop thinking of ourselves as just users of some service. We're not customers browsing a digital store. We are inhabitants. We are citizens of the infosphere. And that comes with a new responsibility, not just for ourselves, but for the health and well-being of this entire digital world we all share. So that leaves us with one last massive question to think about. As we all become the architects of this infosphere, day by day, what is our ultimate responsibility? What do we owe not just to each other, but to the digital world that we are actively creating?